Chat with Glendora, America's champion of pro se litigants' rights and First Amendment rights. Stay tuned, we will be right back with our show.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Who are we? Acorn! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! Who are we? Acorn! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
You know why you are a judge? Because you sleep on legal papers. And what legal paper are you sleeping on? You are sleeping on Glendora versus Rothschild and 9 other dirty international bankers who are robbing us of America. And 2 dirty judges named Gomez and Barnard. Barnard is only a magistrate though. And folks, you're going to hear about this as soon as this last page is printed and as soon as I make 26 envelopes. There were 20 defendants. There goes a weekly shopper and a lot of other third-class mail. And a cereal box. Cereal box is good. All kinds of grains with strawberries in it. Dried strawberries. Delicious. We make so much rubbish. The courts make so much rubbish. The judges, the lawyers, the clerks. Arthur Spat, Curtis Gomez, Edward J. Lodge, C.F. Hummel, all rubbish. Charles Bryant, Mark D. Fox, Robert Callaghan, Sadley, Stevens, Burke, and Burke, Walter Sorrock, the 10 international bankers, Rothschild, Lazard Frere, Warburg Pincus, David Rockefeller, Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers. There. Keep stoking the fires in the courts. Burn up their rubbish. And get good people in the courts. And let the courts be what they should be. Children, I'm sorry to tell you, children of tomorrow, you have no courts to go to. There are no courts. Boycott the courts, folks. Boycott the courts. They're not any good. Put them out of business. Make these judges go to work for grocery stores and make an honest living. It takes a long time in effigy to burn up the rubbish in the courts. Long time. Boycott the courts. Put them out of business. Stop wasting your money. This is omnibus lawsuit number 28, 20 defendants or so, Rothschild of North America and Raymond W. Smith. These are the 10 international bankers, and they have been sued for robbing us of America. Gerald Rosenbaum, who is with Rothschild North America and against America. Defendants Warburg and Pincus and Lionel I. Pincus, international banker, robbing us of America. Defendant Rockefeller Financial Services and David Rockefeller, one of the 10 worst international bankers. Defendants Lazard Frere and Michael A. David Weil and John C. Adams, international bankers. Defendants the Trilateral Commission and Thomas J. Foley. Defendants Elliot Spitzer and Richard Rifkin and James B. Henley. I have caught Elliot Spitzer, who's the Attorney General for the state of New York, running for governor. I've caught this man lying and cheating at least 30 times. Going back to the international bankers robbing us of the United States is Goldman Sachs and Company and Henry M. Paulson. The Federal Reserve System and Alan Greenspan, mighty injustices there, taking away our right to coin our own money. Federal Reserve notes, no silver certificates, print as many as they want, loan them to the United States, and then charge the United States interest. That's a scam artist's dream. Defendants, the World Bank and James D. Wolfenson and Paul Wolfowitz, international bankers. Council on Foreign Relations, who improperly influence our Congress people, our executive branch, and our Supreme Court branch, our whole judicial branch. Defendants Lehman Brothers and Richard S. Fuld. These are the international bankers robbing us of America. The 10th of the worst international bankers is the Trilateral Commission and Thomas S. Foley. And David Rockefeller. They just moved down to Washington, D.C. so they can exert more influence in taking America away from us. A liar for hire for Elliot Spitzer is Lisa Gardy, and also in the Attorney General's office for their cheating, Rifkin and Henley. They allow this to go on. Terrible. Perpetual defendants and perpetual fugitives, unbelievable. James Reynolds, Stuart Smith, Rob Johnson, Lori Pulver, Mid-Hudson Cablevision, and Mid-Hudson Media. Unbelievable. For violating public access rights and keeping from you people in the coverage area of this cable company, keeping you people from getting the community news that everybody else is getting. You are on TV and nobody knows it in your area because of these bad people. James Reynolds, Stuart Smith, Rob Johnson, Lori Pulver, Mid-Hudson Cablevision, and Mid-Hudson Media. Arthur Spat, who violates public access rights, doesn't care a hoot about the public, and just colludes with Cablevision. Someday he should collide with Cablevision. But, how's your father? He said to Charles Former, the lawyer at Cablevision. And Arthur Spat's law clerk, Jeffrey Amato, who's related to Alyssa Amato, my defendant, that I sued at Cablevision. Michael Young and Jack Nussbaum and Wilkie Farr Gallagher, who have the Adelphia, who are the so-called lawyers for the Regas family, who lost Adelphia Cable and has been gobbled up by Time Warner and Comcast. They have done a terrible job, these people, these defendants. And all the international bankers have jumped in to get the $17 billion that the Regas family amassed. And they have done a mess of the bankruptcy proceeding. They removed 400 cases from state court. They haven't handled any of them. We haven't gotten any justice at all, we shareholders. Perennial liar for hire, Sadly Stephen Burke and Burke. Liar for hire, Walter A. Sarrock. Liar for hire, Robert M. Callaghan. Defendant Cecilia Masterilli of Cablevision Systems Corporation, who still owes Glendora $5,000. These defendants in the Second Circuit, Manhattan, Guido Calabrese, John M. Walker, George Bush's cousin, he's the chief judge of the Second Circuit, Manhattan, and the clerk there, Roseanne McKechnie, and a deputy there, Chin Allen. What did they do? Well, they've probably broken more laws than all of the defendants who have ever come before them. They have violated probably the United States more times than the sum total of the defendants who have come to them. Richard Shemansky, a clerk in the Nassau District Court, State Court, who doesn't know how to file a lawsuit, and Denise Scher, who countenances it. This is a group of cheaters, out-and-out cheaters, and traitors to the United States, the First Circuit in Boston. Celia, Lipes, Perez, Jimenez, Stearns, Richard Stearns. Oh, that's a bad one. Tortorella, Wendt, Pagano, and another judge on the so-called Judicial Council of the First Circuit, Boston, is William Smith, who's in Providence. The clerk of the court, and this latest federal judge to hit the pits. Another federal judge hits the pits. Curtis V. Gomez, United States District Judge in the Virgin Islands. The latest judge to hit the pits. A rather lethargic lawyer for Rothschild and a law-breaking United States attorney for the United States District Courts in the Virgin Islands. End of defendants. And here it is, everybody. We started on August the 1st and finished today, August the 2nd. Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. And it's the United States District Court for the District of the U.S. Virgin Islands. And it's Glendora Plaintiff versus Rothschild, North America, Raymond W. Smith, and Gerald Rosenfeld et al. And here's the case number. And what it is a Rule 60B motion by Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. And it's asking for relief from the order. Glendora motion for relief from order pursuant to Rule 60B Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Gomez is the name of the United States judge, and there's a magistrate there in the Virgin Islands called Barnard. Gomez and Barnard both violated the United States Code, Title 28, United States Code, Section 636, which says, no magistrate shall touch Glendora's lawsuit without her consent in writing, and Glendora never gave her consent in writing. She did not, and she will not. And both of the papers are unlawful. The one written by Barnard, which is a report and recommendation, and the order written by Curtis v. Gomez. And Gomez and Barnard must be impeached, fined, and jailed. And Glendora also wants her $50 back, plus their costs. And Barnard and Gomez have committed fraud. They committed a lot of fraud, but they particularly have committed consumer fraud. Alpha, the return date is August the 23rd, 2006. That's 3 weeks from today. Gomez flunks basic litigation. He does not know that a civil rights case can be brought in any federal court in the United States. Their flimsy and no account excuse was jurisdiction. Of course they have jurisdiction. But they don't know the law, and they don't know basic litigation. Nor does Gomez know that pro se civil rights cases cannot be dismissed summarily. That means I don't get any discovery. That means I don't get the jury trial. It means that my Fifth Amendment right is violated, my Sixth Amendment right, and my 14th Amendment right are all violated. This is how dumb Gomez is, and how crooked, and how cheap, and how cheater. Gomez knows fully well that all the defendants failed to answer the complaint timely and are in default. That's indisputable, incontestable, or uncontestable. Further, Gomez knows that all defendants failed to answer the motion for default judgment. Now this is double default, and it's incontestably so, unamphibiously so. Openly and shamelessly, Gomez turns his back. We all know he is being puppeted. And we all know who's pulling the strings. It's the international bankers. Hence, Gomez is in violation of Criminal Code, Title 18, U.S. Code, Section 1001. Lying, cheating, covering up, material fact. And this carries a fine and a jail term. So Gomez and Barnard should both be in jail, along with the U.S. Attorney there, Carroll. It is no secret who is pulling the strings. The bonds of both Barnard and Gomez must be challenged and claims made against them because they are bad risks. This is pitiful dis-Americanism, and you children of tomorrow, you can do anything you want. A federal court is not going to stop you. Unless you're poor. If you're poor, that might not stop you. They will not enforce the law. And they took oaths. Barnard and Curtis v. Gomez took oaths to support the Constitution of the United States and to protect the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The biggest domestic enemy we have today is the courts. Gomez and Barnard have failed despicably in their effective and efficacious administration of the business of the courts. They don't know what the business of the courts is. The business of the courts is justice. They don't know that. We have another failure. Justice is dead. It is people like Gomez and Barnard and the two Carrolls who give the courts a bad name. Nobody believes them. What do we do when the judges are worse than the defendants? This is Title 28, United States Code 351, Judicial Misconduct and Disability. Carroll lawyer showed abysmal lack of power, moral, legal, intellectual, and spiritual in his so-called letter in behalf of the Rothschild defendants. That would be Rothschild North America, Raymond W. Smith, and Gerald Rosenberg. They chose to be slaves to the international bankers, denude the courts of justice, rights, protections, esteem, children of tomorrow. You have no place to go. If anybody violates you, children of tomorrow, you have no place to go. They are locked into it, Gomez and Barnard and the rest of them, and they do not have the caliber to extricate themselves. They do not have the impetus, nor the capacity. We must pray ardently for them. Please pray for them. Curtis V. Gomez and his fellow accomplice, his partner in crime, Barnard. They have been flattened to a nothing. Boycott the courts, folks. There's nothing left. Do not go to the courts. Put them out of business, and then these people will have to find other jobs like grocery stores and earn an honest living for the first time in their lives. Save the taxpayers the huge expense of the federal courts, quote unquote. Shut them down. Gamma. Did it end with a bang? No, folks. It ended with a whimper. Our United States ended with a whimper. God has called us to expose another one. Another federal judge hits the pits. Curtis V. Gomez. Last week, another federal judge hit the pits. Edward J. Lodge, Idaho. They cheated, and they know they cheated. As kids, did they play their games fairly and squarely? I doubt it, folks. Delta. So continue to rob the children of tomorrow of the courts and aid and abet a publication by peace officers and police and soldiers agonize over judges tampering with the juries and making the outcome exactly the way they want it, which is against America. You don't understand why federal judges are against America, do you? It's because they're in the service of the international bankers, and the international bankers are against America. They want to do away with America. They don't want America to have sovereignty. They don't want America to be a country. They want to do away with all countries because they want to be a world government and enslave the rest of us. And Phyllis Schlafly wants us to form groups of 10 and meet in our homes once a week and discuss one chapter of how to stop the tyranny of judges. Everybody is against the judges. St. Paul in 2 Timothy 2 told us about you. I'll read that to you later. Conclusion. For any of the foregoing reasons, the so-called order, quote unquote, of Gomez dated July the 20th, 2006. They didn't get here until July the 31st. Must be vacated, and Glendora must be relieved of the same, and her money fraudulently taken from her refunded to her. Now, under penalty of perjury and with alacrity, Glendora asseverates that she has told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help her God. Gomez has not. Further, Glendora asseverates that she served the within 8 pages on all the defendants, 32 copies, 32 sets. And both Carols, Carol the crooked U.S. attorney and Carol the crooked lawyer, so-called, for Rothschild defendants. Anyway, she served him today, August the 2nd, 2006, by U.S. first-class mail. This paper is dated today, August the 2nd, 2006, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord, in the state of New York. Yours in truth, and an amor patriae, which means love of one's country, which Gomez does not have. And it's signed Glendora. And it's opus 1,435. That's 1,435 legal papers. It took 8 hours. It cost $16.62. And the internet number is circa 4,418, 7th edition. Without prejudice, Uniform Commercial Code, Article 1, Section 207, Glendora. A chat with Glendora on 52 TV stations, including Albany, New York, and the District of Columbia. Now, here's what St. Paul says. But know this, that in the last days, perilous times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. I think that pretty well describes you defendants, and it certainly describes you, Gomez and Barnard, and the two Carols. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. This is very, very interesting. Now you know Daniel in the Bible, and I know somebody named Daniel, and I'm going to give him this. And this comes from the first chapter of Daniel, the first verse. And it says, so Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of the
The Securities and Exchange Commission is supposed to be the watchdog of corporate America, setting the rules so that investors have the information they need to make wise decisions. But what can that organization really accomplish when faced with malevolent managers, conflicted gatekeepers, and a powerful business lobby that has made it clear it doesn't want regulators to get too feisty. In this climate, what can individual investors do to protect themselves? I'm Sarah Bartlett, and this is our topic today on USA Inc. Joining us today is Lynn Turner, the former chief accountant of the SEC, who is now a managing director at Glass Lewis & Company, an advisor to shareholders on accounting and corporate governance issues. Lynn, we're glad you could be here today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Good. You had what amounts to the catbird seat at one point. You were the chief accountant at the SEC. You got to get a really close-up look at all the filings and how corporate earnings are assembled and monitored. Can you share any of your perspective on what's reasonable to expect from an investor standpoint of those earnings statements and the extent to which regulators are looking at them?
Well, I think it's reasonable for investors to expect those who have taken their money, the executives at the companies, the boards of directors, to fulfill their obligations that they signed up for when they took that money, and that is to make sure those financial statements, one, give them the real results, of what is economically going on with the company, and then two, to make the disclosures about any important information that those executives themselves might want to know about that company if they were investing in it. And I think that's a fair request.
It's a request, but is it happening?
I think in a lot of times it is. Unfortunately, there's still too many times where it doesn't occur. We've recently seen that in the case with Refco. We've certainly recently seen it in the case where within 24 hours, AIG, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and GM all announced that they were redoing their numbers, not for the first time, but for the second time.
And what happened in the course of that, after that 24 hours, in terms of impact on investors?
Well, obviously, GM stock took a downward dive for a while. It's come back some, but certainly that's a concern way on investors' mind. A little over a year ago, Fannie was trading at $70 plus a share. Here recently has been down in between $45 and $50 a share. So when you shake the investor confidence in those numbers, the stock valuations always take a hit, and investors take losses. We all know during the dot-com bubble that we saw trillions upon trillions of dollars in value go away from those who had invested in them.
Hello and welcome to Legislative Reports. Senator John Flanagan. I'm your host, Rebecca Oshner. Good afternoon, Senator. How are you?
Nice to see you.
Very good to see you. Well, yesterday the Senate held a news conference regarding legislation that you passed, actually. It was pertaining to the fleeing a police officer in a motor vehicle. Will you explain it a little bit?
Yeah, this is a colleague of mine, Senator Lisi's bill from Monroe County. It's a bill that he's actually had introduced for the last couple of years. And I know we have a clip in a moment, but this is a story of a 25-year-old police officer who was killed in a high-speed chase. And the status of our law is that basically under certain circumstances, it can end up being essentially no more than a traffic violation. No misdemeanor, no felony, no
Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge & Company. We the people, fortunately, have some wonderful lawyers who defend our rights and protect our interests. Donna Lieberman is one of the brightest. She's the executive director of the New York Civil Liberties Union. Hello.
Hi, Ronnie.
So what are the liberties or rights that we need to defend these days?
Seems like all of them. Our rights are under attack like they've not been in my lifetime, ranging from reproductive rights, which the Bush administration is out to destroy, to First Amendment rights, basic things like the right to protest and participate in political organizations free from government interference, the privacy rights, talking on the phone, using the computer, and without government watching what you're doing. And equality rights. The government has made, profiling, while it says it doesn't engage in profiling, it's really the centerpiece of law enforcement.
It's quite an amazing phenomena that this has happened. And when you think about it, we're so used to rhetoric in politics about right wing, left wing, and people throw those terms out so easily. I remember when I was in the city council, Giuliani always called us left wing people. I always cringed because that kind of divisiveness is, even though it was ridiculous, it's just, it sort of gets absorbed so that finally it wears you down, or do you know what I'm saying? The opposite.
Well, interestingly enough, nowadays, those of us who like the idea of being called left-wing are really joining forces with people on the right, who we never thought we would have been involved with.
Well, that's that Bob Barr, right?
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Congressman.
Yeah, we have this, the New York Civil Liberties Union has this Bill of Rights defense campaign that we've been working on a lot lately, and it's part of the nationwide grassroots movement for local cities and towns to put their city councils on record saying, we oppose the war on civil liberties. We want to be safe, but we want to be free, and you can't jeopardize our freedom in the name of national security.
Did that come from the Patriot Act?
Well,
was that the enabling legislation?
Well,
and then it's the interpretation of it
well,
afterwards?
it's more than the Patriot Act, actually.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked. Patriot Act has become code for the erosion of civil
Right.
liberties, but the erosion is happening through the Patriot Act, for sure, but also through a series of executive orders and actions, you know, like the detention of so-called enemy combatants without charges or any hope for a trial or access to counsel. That's the Jose Padilla case. Or the spying on lawyer-client relations. You know, Ashcroft, you know, told us one day that he's going to spy on lawyer-client conversations when he thinks it's appropriate. But trust him, he says.
only gonna
you know,
use it.
he's right. He's not going to abuse it, and he's not going to use it in any cases involving those individuals. I mean, what is that about?
So what it is it's a world where people are really frightened, where we have terrible polarization and threats of terrorist acts and things like, and the war in Iraq and all of these misbehaving and incredible events happening. Then we have an administration that really proved to be very truly ideologically extremely conservative, and that's being generous, right?
That's being very generous.
Right. And then we have some things that they can interpret or do, and then in front of all of us we have the Supreme Court, because if we certainly can see the warnings what would happen if this president was able to even make more appointments. I mean, as it is now, there are supposedly a couple of swings, right?
Well, yeah,
Swing
you know,
votes.
the last significant abortion case, for example, went our way 5-4, and that was on the so-called partial birth abortion ban that, you know, of course, which is hype. You know, it's not a partial birth abortion ban. It's a ban on a whole range of procedures that are commonly used, medically accepted and acceptable, you know, throughout the second trimester and possibly even in the first. And we only won that case by one vote. So if the Bush administration is able to pack the courts, as it has indicated it is intending to do, we are in serious trouble.
And the federal courts are very important, the appointments that the Democrats are holding up or trying to, and being ridiculed by the Republicans as being so unproductive and counter.
Well, ideological, I think, is
what it is,
you know, the key word here. You know, there are lots of wonderful decisions. The Warren Court. Warren was appointed.
talking about images. What do these images bring up in your mind? All citizens should go to the polls this year. All citizens should select a candidate. They should know the background and the platform. It's time for another episode of SecretJustice.com News. Come with us today as we travel the courts. Today we're going to start off at the United States Tax Court in Washington, D.C. See how abusive they are. I was called down here today by one of the clerks regarding a request that I had made on the 11th of June to file, to officially go over the court docket and the case file, and I was astounded at what I found today, so I had to chronicle it. Here's a copy of the docket as of today, and if you'll notice in red all of the items that have been missing or destroyed from the case docket. And so I'm trying to reopen the case. And on the 11th of June, I filed a motion to reopen the case. And as of the docket, as of today, 7/26/06, which is over a month now, the docket, the motion to reopen has never been recorded on the record. And even though this document has been filed in numerous other courts and motions to reopen all the cases. But these are some of the items that are missing out of the case file. Docket entry number 1, petition filed on 11/19 is missing. Order that the party shall appear 11/19 is missing. A designation of trial is missing. Amended petition for review is missing with the lodged appendix. Amended petition for review of failure to abate interest is missing with the lodged appendix. Motion by petitioner to sever the case is missing. Motion by respondents to dismiss the case is the only thing that was there that I could find. Order of 11003, objection to file motions was missing. Notice to the court by petitioner is missing. 1231. Opposition by the respondents, the Internal Revenue Service agents, that was there. There's only 14 pages. All the exhibits and extracts have been destroyed. The supplemental petition in opposition is there. There's only 2 pages of that. All the supporting documents and everything else that goes along with it have been destroyed. And order of dismissal, the Judge Wells' signature on it. There's 3 pages of that there, and that's it. So I'm going back to the office, but this is the United States Tax Court, and this is how come people in the United States get robbed of their rights, because this is outrageous. I filled out a new copy request today so that I can get the additional copies. Unfortunately, it takes 4 to 5 days. But there's some good news. I attended my first candidates conference yesterday in regards to candidates running for U.S. Congress. And here's the gentleman who made it possible. Gilbert Saperstein, Maryland's crime kingpin. And so I've got a nice bulletin board made up. I will follow this up at the office, but it is now roughly 1 o'clock on the 26th, and I'm leaving Washington, D.C., and this is the... God bless. Oh. On a second note, the United States District Court in Washington, D.C. has allowed my complaint against the town of Forest Heights, its mayor, to move forward for the violation of Voting Rights Act 1966. So I will be going into the United States District Court seeking relief to have my voting rights restored. God bless. Hello once again, and welcome back to a Chat with Glendora News. George McDermott here, Secret Justice News, secretjustice.com, reporting to you from the land of the scam and the home of the fraud. Today we have a lot of news on everything for you, so we need to get right into it. And I'm going to start off with, well, this is one of the things that I believe we really need to look into. It's the Pledge of Allegiance. And this was presented to me by Forest Heights Baptist Church. And this is something all Americans should think about. One nation under God. Do our courts allow that anymore, or are we allowing a small fraction of the public to outlaw God in all forms? It appears that way. And so I'm going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, that's what it's about. And this was compliments of the Forest Heights Baptist Church. Blessed is the nation who God is the Lord. Psalm 33:12. So let's move on. We have a lot to talk about today. I talked to Glendora earlier in the week, and got several more of her shows up on the web, and I've got several more 3 shows going this week to DCTV and to Channel 76 and Prince George's County. And I was just received this update of the court cases that Glendora has in the United States Magistrate's Office. Judge M.I. Natalia violates the law. That's she's got this up on her website. It shows how the justices are denying access to the courts to all pro se litigants. And then that's show number 4393-1 on her website. She has about 400 shows up there. And then let's go on. Glendora appeals a rotten decision of C.F. Itona, New York State Court of Appeals. And I talked to her about this case, and it's basically pro se litigants are being outlawed from the courts in the United States. Why corporate gangsters and their attorneys have free run of the courts, and they rob us blind. The courts who are violating our rights under 28 U.S.C. 1654 and Title I of the United States Constitution. Title I, Title 7, and Title 14. Violating the victim's rights to go into courts and to try to get the courts to resolve these matters in a manner that's consistent with the law. But unfortunately, the courts are not interested in that. So, but here's a list of all Glendora's shows. She's got show 4394-4 Christine Savarino. I was up at, I helped her on that case in the I think it was Rye Court, City Court in New York. I went up and visited her. But you really need to go to Chat with Glendora, and you'll get enlightened as to how the courts of this nation are robbing you. I, myself, we are having a lot of problems here in Maryland. My town was taken over by a group of, a small group of town council people who were elected by barely a dozen votes. And they've since taken over Forest Heights, and they have decided to abandon our Constitution. They've nullified our elections for 1996 and 1997, which we've had for 50 years. And they've enacted like 50 laws denying our citizens access to the courts. So this week I just got this from the U.S. District Court in the District of Columbia, and here you go. And what happened is I had to file a lawsuit against the town council and the members of the council for conspiracy to deny us, our citizens, of the relief under the 1966 Voting Rights Act, because we have, once these gangsters gain control of your small municipalities, you'll find out that no one in the state, in the elections boards, no one in the state's attorney's office, the U.S. attorney's office, the Federal Election Commission all say that, well, oh, we have no jurisdiction over municipal elections. And so, you know, they leave it to the citizens to try to resolve this. And when you're going up against the town council has access to insurance company lawyers who just, you know, if you're trying to file anything pro se, you're out of it. So what we did is I filed the case, and I've referenced information in here on the Forest Heights freedom fighters who are trying to take back our town. But that's Forest Heights news, and like I said, I'm reporting from the land of the scam and the home of the fraud, Prince George's County, Maryland. And I know people have heard me say this before, but you know, they don't believe it. But you'd have to go to the Reader's Digest. Okay, this is the August 2006 Reader's Digest, and our judges have just been nominated as the worst judges in the nation. We've got our judge, I'm sure everybody's heard about him, but you know, this judge here, there you go. This is how bad it is in Maryland. We're now number 3 in the worst judges in Maryland, thanks to this gentleman right here. And he's been on national news, but he's not really. I've known this man for 35 or 40 years, and yes, he has major problems, but he's nowhere near the worst judge in our county. And I'm kind of upset. If it was me, I believe I'm going to send a copy of this tape to the editor of this story. And let's see, it was by Dale Van Atta. I'm going to ask him if I can nominate some more judges for next year, because I really think Prince George's County got cheated. We really should take 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the worst judges in the nation in Maryland, because we've got some really bad ones. So, okay, that said, let's move on. Oh, here's a new item that. Yeah, this is where the town council just, Forest Heights, we'll go back to Forest Heights for a second, but this is where the town council Forest Heights freedom fighters have petitioned them to accept the ballot referendum that we had to remove the mayor and town council for breach of fiduciary duties and for collusion and corruption. And so This was on May 17, 2006, and we submitted adequate number of petitions from residents to have a referendum, but they've, even since then, they canceled our May election, canceled our May election of 2006 and the 2007 election to increase their term by another probably 9 years. So, okay, let's move on. And now we're going to move on to something that's revolving. Remember my plight to, if you remember back on shows back, you'll see that Secret Justice News has been reporting on the Saperstein crime syndicate and his connection with the United States Bankruptcy Court. And here's an order from Judge Paul Maness of the United States Bankruptcy Court. See how short it is? I filed a motion on June 6th of 2006 to reopen the case, and this is just what they said. They sent back, it's an order denying motion to reopen. Upon consideration of motion to reopen by George McDermott, plaintiff, it is by the United States Bankruptcy Court for the District of Maryland ordered that the motion to reopen is hereby denied. Now this is the only good part, it's saving part of this here, is denied without prejudice to renew by the Office of the United States Trustee. And then it goes right down and it says a copy of this goes to myself and a copy goes to Andrew Clifford Moore, the debtor in possession. So this is the man who sold and is responsible for the theft of my and my partner's businesses valued at millions and millions of dollars. Actually, here is the this is the business, and you can see it says up there now, the business says Delightscape Palace, and this is a flyer that I found on the ground. And what it does is it shows that my business has been taken over, was taken over first by the Saperstein crime syndicate, and now other people have taken it over, even though I still have $900,000 worth of judgments levied against me by the Saperstein crime syndicate for the theft of my business. And so I've been fighting diligently to try to recover this. And all the while we're doing this, the people of Prince George's County are being robbed. Now, and if you see here, this is a little development that I had planned for Prince George's County back in 1992. And it would have added about 20,000 jobs to the income base of the county, and it would have put about $3.5 to $4 billion in annual income. But this was all lost because of $5 by investment by the Saperstein crime syndicate and the help of the Prince George's County Circuit Court, which has now been named one of the worst courts in the nation, the third worst. So that's basically where we're at. And I keep fighting to get back what was taken from me. But, you know, when you're up against the crime syndicate for the state of Maryland, headed by this gentleman here, who is, he's the Teflon Don of crime in the state of Maryland. And this is after he stole $4 million from the school system in Baltimore, and then they sent him home. And so I've decided that in my campaign literature, I will make sure that I recognize that each one of these judges who's helping this gentleman in tax evasion and theft and conspiracy, that they get proper recognition for subverting the laws of the United States. the time that this is happening, you recognize these folks. And these are the people in 2000 who said our election was rigged and stolen from us. And up here at the top, I mean, that's the 2004 when I had a conference in front of the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court of the United States destroying my appellate papers and robbing me. But we have problems and we need to address them. Let's move on to the United States Tax Court. We're talking about bad courts and bad rulings, so here we are in the United States Tax Court for Washington, D.C. This was filed, okay, see right up there underneath the clip, June 11th, and it's in the matter of George E. McDermott, petitioner versus the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service. It's an emergency motion to reopen caption case for respondents' fraud on the court and petitioners, emergency motion for derogatory judgment relief and review of jeopardy assessments and jeopardy levies under Rule Tax Court 56AC plus 211D. With petitioner's emergency motion for courts granting petitioner an emergency protective order pursuant to the rule 103A10 that the respondents and their agents are proceeding in bad faith and with fraud on the petitioner and the court by repeatedly refusing petitioner's written lawful request for inspection of documents and the possession of and control of the tax court in their possession and control under Tax Court Rule 56 plus 104A D and Rule 72A1. Now, this was filed on the June 11th, and that's well over a month now, a month and a half. And I was called to the United States Tax Court yesterday. Welcome back to SecretJustice.com and a chat with Glendora, America's champion of pro se litigants' rights and First Amendment rights. How are you doing, folks? We're back here again. It's Chat with Glendora, and we need to pick up where we left off. We were talking about the United States Tax Court. And you saw a clip on the beginning of the show of what was going on in the tax court, and I had said that I would follow up on this when I got back to the office. And today I had just filed this motion in the Circuit Court for Prince George's County, trying to reclaim my property once again, and. When I left the U.S. Tax Court, all of the documents that I had filed with the tax court, that 90% of them have been destroyed by allegedly an order from the court. And I will be addressing on Monday a correspondence to Chief Justice Wells of the U.S. Tax Court asking, I had asked in my tax court filing if the Chief Justice had ordered the destruction of the documents. But I have, since I filed it and this motion has never been recorded on the record, I now have to ask for the FBI's intervention into this to find out who among the Saperstein crime syndicate has an insider in the U.S. tax court now, because everything is spelled out in this complaint, page 1 of 29 pages, and anybody who wants to check into it, it's case number 17919 of 2002, and it was a jury demand, and of which the court erroneously dismissed the case because the agents of the Internal Revenue Service admitted in their very first pleading that that they had committed fraud on the court, and that they had held ever since 1987 they had held illegal judgments in the hundreds of thousands of dollars against myself and my family members and my property, so that the Saperstein crime syndicate could take over my business and use it as a money laundering operation into the Miami drug cartel. And this is well reported, you know. And then the reason I had to file it also is because just once again, even after the tax court came back with an opinion, last year the agents of Saperstein and the IRS decided to re-garnish my wife's tax returns, and they refused to give any information about anything. They are doing everything that they can to assist these criminals in the Saperstein crime syndicate with the theft of millions upon millions of dollars out of our treasury. And this is why corporate gangsters get away with everything, because they have slick lawyers, and this Saperstein has a whole has lawyers all over the state of Maryland who have assisted him. As you know, this clearly proves it right here. You know, here is a man who steals. You know, how many people in the United States? Okay, how many people do you know that could openly admit to and plead guilty to 8 counts of fraud and conspiracy and theft and bribery, and they took him right from jail to his house? Instead of 140 years, he wound up 9 months in home detention, and now he's home laughing at the taxpayers of the state of Maryland and everybody he stole from, and he's adding $100,000 plus additions on his house everywhere, his $6 million mansion. So, you know, this is why we the people are being robbed of our rights. And how are we being done? There you go. There's our Constitution. The courts do not. The courts of the United States no longer recognize this as the rule of law. So, go figure. But let's move on to some other items. We've got a couple other items here to talk about. As you know, in earlier shows, we've talked about filing complaints. I filed a motion for the Freedom of Information Act with the Court of Appeals Standing Committee on Rules and Practice, and they sent me...
They let me go for $7.55, but I went out to the car and I found some money orders where I'd overpaid on appealing rotten Christian F. Hummel, and I was able to cash the money orders and pay her $7.55. Let us read today from the Glendora Happy Book. We're on the yellow page, 36. And I think there's something here very important for you. I think a lot about you, and I think how I want you happy, and I know that you can be happy. And here is one of the things. Every day, think less about materialism, the house, food, body, pot, coal, car, clothes. Every day, think less about materialism. Think less about it. And your thought is the strongest tool there is. You just don't realize how powerful your thought is. Your thought is so powerful. Your thought has power over any situation. If you develop your thought, it can control your body. So would you remember that, folks? So you'll be happy, and I want you to be happy. This came to my door from the Jehovah's Witness, and I have a great deal of respect for those people. They do what we should do. They go door to door to try to make people happy. And they're going to have this great big conference at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and it's free. And they say they don't ever take a collection. And look what it's about. Deliverance at hand. Don't you wish all this were true? District Convention of Jehovah's Witnesses. Look at this modern picture they have of Jesus with a crew cut. They do have beautiful drawings. Don't you wish all of this were true? Here's my favorite Bible passage. And the lion shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat. See, it's at this football stadium. And my husband, Frank Buell, when the Jehovah's Witnesses would come to Buffalo at that convention center, he said it was so nice the way they left everything so clean. Don't you wish it were true? To whose authority do you submit? Answer me, folks. Answer me. Do you submit to the authority of what's good or to what is bad? I'm having a huge fight in a little town court, West Taconic, County of Columbia, State of New York, against New York State and this racketeer influence crime organization that they run with all these vehicle and traffic violations. And the people just file in there like ducks. They're intimidated. It's extortion. That's a high mark of RICO. Their motive is money. They're an enterprise. They use extortion. I'm talking about New York State now, vehicle and traffic, and how the police collude with the judge and the clerk just to extort money out of people. And I saw in the Harrison court, and I told you about this at the time, bringing in the sheets is right. In the Harrison court, I watched them right up close. Fine, $350. Can you pay now? Do you need time to pay? Fine, $250. Can you pay now? Do you need time to pay? The town takes so much. For instance, the town took $25 from my minister for driving without a front license plate, and then the state put $55 on it. It is terrible racket. It is a terrible RICO, racketeer influence crime organization that our state, New York State, is running. So whom do you submit to? That kind of authority? Or do you submit to the authority of what is good and what is God? How to attain a happy family life. How young people can resist the temptation of immoral conduct. Don't you wish it was all true? Deliverance by God's kingdom is at hand. When is this? It's June 30th. That starts, this coming weekend. Through July 2nd. And it's 9:30 a.m. every day. University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Mullins Center, Amherst, Massachusetts. You want to go, folks? They don't charge you any money. Oh, I wish it were also true. I know somebody who's a Jehovah's Witness and who's making the worst mess of life. Worst mess. Full of hate, full of vengeance, full of ugliness. Charles Schumer, we want to know your position on tenants, and are you just going to side with the landlords because they give you money? They have the money, of course. The tenants don't have any money. It's the landlords. And Charles Schumer, are you going to preserve and strengthen rent regulation? And Charles Schumer, are you going to take a strong public stand for home rule, giving control of rents and evictions back to New York City? And Charles Schumer, are you going to make a commitment to end the vacancy decontrol that is costing New York thousands of affordable apartments? When somebody moves out, you can jack the rent way up. And we can't afford another pro-landlord governor like Pataki from Peekskill. If Elliot Spitzer wants to be our governor, we need him to fight for affordable housing. Tell Spitzer that tenants care and tenants vote. You want Spitzer's number? Naturally, it's Manhattan, which is 212. Can you remember 608? And can you remember 4320? Instead of being 4321, it's 4320. What's the exchange? 608. Don't vote for him unless he's going to take care of tenants. New York State. Money, 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 money. Every time we buy something, they steal money from us. I bought a $99 copying machine, a Canon copier, $7 to this state. And they go out and spend all this money on New York State court offices and the courts and take away your purses and your handbags and your knapsacks. And they go through everything you have. Think what that costs. I want that done away with. I want that done away with. It's medieval, it's Gestapo, it's dis-American. So here's your quality service, Jonathan Littman. You get rid of that stuff. No more of this stuff. And you let us have our recorders. You have no right to take our recorders away from us. And you have no right to take our videotape recorders away from us. We've got a right to make our own record in court. Because we know exactly what those dirty, ugly judges and clerks are going to do. They're going to tamper with the evidence. We know that. And we have plenty of witnesses to that. And it's happened to too many people. Now I got something else to talk over with you. Let me go back and get it. Folks, this is an allocution to David King, who's administers, question mark, public access at Comcast, Danbury, Connecticut. And I worked on this 15 minutes a day faithfully, folks. And I tried to think of a way to make this boy do what the law says about public access. And I got a nice call from somebody named Dan. I think his last name is Greenville or Glenville in Springfield, Massachusetts, who somehow or other is in charge of Comcast Regional. And Dan said that he would take care of it for me. And he called up David King to tell him to do what was right. And then I called Dan Glenville, and Dan Glenville tells me that David King says that the program I handed in is not my program. Well, it is, folks, because my name is on it. It was Arnie Engen and Joe Salonia, and I want people to hear what they have to say. And that was to be the content of a chat with Glendora. And I put my name all across it and my telephone number. And it was clearly a chat with Glendora. It was clearly my program. So, what do I do next? Well, I may publish this letter, and I am publishing it right now, of course, to you. I may mail it and I may not. Here's how it goes. Alpha, if I choose to have the Connecticut words of Engen and Salonia on a chat with Glendora, that is my contents. I made this pellucid by superimposing throughout my name and the title A Chat with Glendora with my telephone number. You are in rank violation, you, David King, Comcast, Danbury, in rank violation of public access law. You have gone the end of your rope, censoring a chat with Glendora from Danbury, Bethel, and Ridgefield. This is about the 4th program that he has prohibited. Glendora can sue you for your car, your house, and everything in it. Start with the Telecommunications Policy Act of 1984, codified as Title 47, U.S. Code, Section 521 et sequitur. No cable operator can exercise editorial control over public access, to wit, Section 531E. When you refuse, in your hauteur, to cablecast a chat with Glendora because I incorporate in it the words of Engen and Salonia, you are exercising forbidden cable TV operator editorial control. This is actionable in federal court where I live and where you live. Also, it is in diversity of citizenship. I live in New York, you live in Connecticut. You are across the state line. You can be sued, Candy again as an accessory, Comcast of Danbury and Bethel and Ridgefield, and Comcast Regional and Comcast Corporate and its 2 owners, the Roberts family. What is the damen? It is $180 million. $180 million. Beta, page 3. Further, you are in rank violation of Connecticut State Public Access Law. Unamphibiously, said laws states that no cable TV operator shall exercise editorial control over public access. When Glendora chooses to have what Quo Vadis said on December the 28th, 2005 as the content of her program, properly designated as her program, you cannot censor said content. You, as an administrator of public access, cannot exercise editorial control. This is to David King, administrator of public access for Comcast in Danbury, Connecticut. You personally, together with a Comcast entitled list, entities listed, super, will be sued. Gamma. Further, you had to produce from each of these 3 municipalities a franchise to string your cables along the public's right-of-way. In addition to 5% of gross revenue, the franchises stipulate that public access has to be, and what do the franchise stipulates as to the editorial control by a cable TV operator? Verboten. So, in addition to your monumental violations of federal law, alpha, and state law, beta, you have transgressed municipal law, gamma. Delta. Congress called us an electronic soapbox. This is in Title 47 of the United States Code 521 et sequitur. If I go to Danbury and stand in the park and say what I heard on Quo Vadis, do I need a permit from the city? No. This would be abominable violation of sidewalk free speech, and sidewalk free speech deserves and gets the utmost protection. You've forgotten that this is America. And we are an electronic soapbox. Not only does David King violate Glendora's free speech together with that of Quo Vadis, but additionally, David King violates your First Amendment right. Your First Amendment right to know. I have a right to tell you, First Amendment, and you have a First Amendment right to know. What Glendora wants them to know, the content of her program, as to what Engen in Meriden and Salonia in Hebron want them to know. Thereby, you introduce issues of free speech in the Constitution of Connecticut also. Epsilon. Further. Federal, state, and municipal law are uniform in the mandate that public access shall be administered on a non-discriminatory basis. He has been discriminating against me for 2 months. You have been abhorrently discriminating against Glendora. You discriminate against her because she is from New York. Or what is your statutory authority? Produce a law that Glendora's free speech is to be censored to the populace of Danbury, Bethel, and Ridgefield, because Glendora is not a resident of one of them. What statute made by Congress, the Connecticut legislature, or the common councils of Danbury, Bethel, and Ridgefield exists? Public access shall be administered on a non-discriminatory basis. Zeta. What makes you so inimical to public access? Why do you constantly limit and prohibit public access? Ron Pure used to travel from Bethel to Westchester to tell Glendora about your limiting and prohibiting public access, and that was way back in 1996. We are on page 9. Arnie Engen in Meriden joined with a Bethel resident to do public access on your system, produced 4 shows, and you censored all of them. And this was 10 years ago. You have been doing this for decades. Why are you so mean? Glendora studies the impasse with you 15 minutes a day, trying to discern your inscrutable nature. Do you think you have a little fiefdom? You are a king? Do you have absolute rule over the monarchy of Danbury, Bethel, and Ridgefield? Is it a power play? We cannot figure you out. Are you trying to save your self-worth? Do you have public access? Do you hate public access? Do you hate the free speech necessary to make a democracy work? Are you under the control of the international bankers? Glendora was a public access administrator back in 1972 in Buffalo, back in 1973 in Bangor, Maine, back in 1974 in George Reynolds' system in the Naugatuck Valley, going from Waterbury to Bridgeport, and also in Glens Falls. Even with this extensive background in public access administration and her perspicacity the same, she cannot discern your motive. What is your game? David King, Comcast, Danbury, Connecticut. Like all swell-headed public access producers, you try to get your censorship by invoking technical quality. We ask you how come the shows you are so arbitrarily rejecting were successfully cablecast on Glendora's other 52 public access TV systems. And these systems are 12 times the size of yours, of your little fiefdom. Brooklyn has 800,000 subscribers, Nassau 450,000 subscribers, Manhattan